Hi everyone, this is Vicki and I wanted to record a short video just showing you how to start this composition project. So the first thing you're going to do is to download the assignment file, which is a Photoshop file, to your computer. You can save it on your desktop, or you can, if you have a special folder for our class, just save it there. And then you're going to double click on it and that will open up your file in Photoshop, and it should look like this. Oops, let me get this centered. And you'll see here that each of these shapes is on a different layer, and each of these shapes is a vector shape. So they act a little bit differently than what we've been using in our photos that we've been retouching. So you don't have to select anything. You don't have to draw a selection. Each of these shapes is already defined on its layer. So I'll just show you a couple of things that you can do. So say you want to change the color of something. You need to first make sure that you have the layer that the item is located on selected. So you can see here I have the starfish selected. And then what the tools that you're going to use are right down here under the type tool, and it's the selection, the path selection tool, and the direct selection tool. And the difference between these two is if you want to select the entire shape, you're going to use the black arrow or the path selection tool. And if you want to select individual anchor points, you're going to use the white arrow or the direct selection tool. And let me show you how that works. So say I'm on the starfish and I just want to change the color. To do that, I just click on the starfish and you'll see that all of the anchor points are highlighted and the entire shape is now selected. We have a little menu up here when I do that, and you'll see that there's a little square for fill and one for stroke. And then this next box tells you how thick the stroke is. Right now I don't have a stroke applied, but I could. And this sets the type of stroke that you would like to apply if you do apply it. And then this is the actual width and height of the shape, and then there's some other options here. But to change the color, I want to go ahead and click on the fill, and there I can choose a new color. Okay, and not only can I do a solid color, but if you like, I could do a gradient. And if I choose one of these gradients, then I can select my own colors by double clicking on the color stops. So this is a color to transparent, and then you can play around with that a little bit because there are some different options here. You can have a linear, you can have a radial gradient. I can change this to another color if I like, and I'm double clicking on that color stop and choosing another color. So there's all kinds of different things you can do to change the color on this. And then if I wanted to apply a stroke of some kind, you know, I can either choose a solid color stroke, and I can set the width here, and then I could choose different types of strokes. So those are some of my options there. So that's one way to change the color, because you'll see that we're a little bit limited when you're dealing with vector shapes in terms of filters until you turn it into a Photoshop or a raster image, and there's a way you can rasterize your shape, but you want to make sure that the size and the color and things like that are already done before you rasterize it, because once you rasterize it, it's no longer a vector shape with all these anchor points, and it's you're more limited in how you can change the shape. So let's say I've set my color and I have a stroke, and now what I want to do with this is I want it to look not so much like a starfish. Now if the other shapes are getting in your way visually, remember that you can click off on the other shapes, and that's just clicking the visibility off, and that can allow you to concentrate on the shape that you're working on. And so if I want to move this starfish around, that's no problem. I just grab it with the path selection tool. If I want to make more than one starfish, I can hold down the Alt key, and that will duplicate the starfish. And all this is happening on the same layer. If I want to enlarge, actually just moving it around is with the path selection tool. If I want to change the way the shape looks, I'm going to need to switch over to the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow tool. And I'm going to click outside the shape, and then I'm going to click on it again. And then you'll see that you can click on individual anchor points, and you can start to manipulate the shape a little bit using the anchor points. And so if you wanted to change the shape of this entirely, you could do that. So say I wanted to make this from a starfish. Oops, come on. This one doesn't want to cooperate. I can click on the anchor points until I get these. Double-ended lines, and then I can change the curve of my lines and make this into more of a flower type shape. On this one, I need to transform this point. Okay, I've zoomed in on this shape to find out why I couldn't pull out this curve to make it look more like a flower shape. And what I see is that this shape is not a complete path. So you can see that it starts here and it ends here, and I'm missing this one last line. So if you want to change the starfish shape, just zoom in so that you can see what I'm seeing, and select your pen tool, and then click at the top where you see the top anchor point, and then go down to the anchor point below it and click, and now that completes the shape, and now you can have a flower shape if you were so desire. So that's what the problem is. On this one on the right, this one line is not connected, so it's not behaving the way the other ones were. So that's how you change the shape, and you can do that with all of these different shapes. You can do all kinds of things to them. Say we choose the waves, and we choose the path selection tool. If you just choose the path selection tool, that's going to move the whole thing. But if you choose the direct selection tool, you can change different anchor points independent of all the others. Okay. Now, there are some filters. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do a color first. So right now my fill is black. I'm going to go ahead and click and change this fill to something different. And then I'm going to go up, oops, and you'll see that the filters are grayed out, and that's because these are all vector images, so there's not a lot we can do until we decide to rasterize them. If I deselected everything and I went up to filter and I tried something like noise, I'll get this warning that the shape layer has to be rasterized. So just remember, once you rasterize the shape, you can no longer manipulate all those anchor points. So just make sure that it's where you want it, and it's the shape that you want, and it's the color that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. Now if you want to resize something, let's click on the shell shape. Oops. And make sure you're using the right tool. And I'm going to change the color of this. I'm going to choose a gradient. And you see my gradient defaulted back to my last one, so I'm going to have to change the colors. And I'm going to duplicate this by holding down the Alt key and just duplicating it. And now if I want to resize it, I can just right click on it and go to Free Transform, and that allows me to resize it and move it around, and also do some other things. I mean, I don't have to keep it constrained. I had the Shift key selected, but I can, oops, move this around. I want to move my center point. Okay, and then make sure you hit return once you've got your resized. So you can right click on the shape, or you can go up to Edit, Transform Path, and you can choose Scale, Rotate, Skew, or you can free transform. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and reduce the size. And then because I don't want it looking just the same as the other one, I'm going to rotate it a little bit. And then I'll put it back in the middle. Well, now I like where these are, and I'm going to go ahead and commit my changes. I think I'll put that one a little bit more in the center. And now I'm going to go ahead and choose a filter. So I'm going to try something with these. So now I'm sure I like where I am. I like the color. So now I'll go ahead and rasterize them. And then I can do some embossing. And you might get some unexpected results. You just have to play around. I'm going to say OK. And now you'll see that when I do nothing happens with the spirals anymore in terms of being able to select them. If I want to move the spiral shape, which is the shells, they are locked together now, and I have to select the layer and then just move them together. But I can do more filters. I can do other effects like drop shadow because they've been rasterized. Okay. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you? So those are the main things that you need to know when you're working with shapes. You can copy shapes and put them on different layers if you want to have like these blades of grass all on different layers. Oops. And there's really a lot you can do with them. You can flip them horizontal, so I can hold down the Alt key and duplicate the grass and have them going in different directions. You want to make sure you select the grass that you want to work with. And so you can make them look different that way. I can do another set and then choose the white arrow tool. Just remember to commit your changes if you've done the transform. And then I could change some of the shapes. So you really can do a lot of customizing with vector shapes. So I hope you guys have fun with this, and don't forget to email me if you have any questions.